So hi folks, we're back again. We're going to be doing some watercolor painting. I hope you're having a great day. Pretty cold here, we're in winter and it's pretty cold. But we're going to start this, get into this second part of this watercolor painting. At first I showed in part one how to blend up some colors, blend colors in the background so that these little white flowers could stand out. So now that I have actually blended lots of colors in the background, I thought I'd kind of walk around with you. I still have some leaves and other things to paint. I let this all dry, of course. So now we'll just we'll just move on and then maybe get to the flowers. If not, the flowers will be part three, because as I said, I do not want these to be very long. Now I have a ton of brushes here, of which of course everybody does, but I won't be using all these brushes. I usually pick, these are just, a handful of the brushes that we all collect. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab, I was trying to figure out how to fit this in here. Nothing special, this is my kitchen table in my home. And got my water here. I have my paper towels or whatever you choose to use. I have my paints, which today is just watercolor. This particular picture is just watercolor. And I'm going to use several of my round brushes. This is a 7 and a 1. I may end up using this flat 3/8. Let's see, for what I have here, I may end up using, I like the brushes with a nice point. So I'm going to grab, actually what I like to do is grab the ones that I think I'll be using. So I'm going to put all these little round brushes down on my table here. And maybe this larger one as well. It's 3/4 flat. And I have my spray bottle, of which I'm going to, at this moment, spray my paints here. I have nothing fancy for a palette, just something I got at the dollar store. Works just fine for me. The only other thing I am going to be doing, I've gone through so many palettes, is I have this little thing here that I've got some yellow, acrylic yellow and white. And I do that because if for some reason I'm not getting my white to stand out as much as I want, or it's my yellow kind of got in there somehow. Wipe that up with the paper towel as much as I can. If I feel as though my white isn't as bright as I want it, or my yellow is not as bright, I do choose to use some acrylic for that. Not in it all the time, just sometimes, so I have it out in case I do want it. All right, so as I said in this one, we've got this far in part one. So now what I'm going to do is take this small, let's see here, I think we'll choose this one here, and this is these are Artist Loft. I have so many different kinds of paintbrushes, but these particular ones, which I find work really well actually, are Artist Loft. It's number 3, small round. I'm going to put it in the water, get it wet, dab it on my paper towel, and I'm going to come over here to these little wispy twigs and things like that. So for that, I want to grab my brown and my green, which I believe this is this particular green I'm mixing in with that is sap green. And just with the very tip, okay, the very tip, and very too much water, so you have to be very careful. Water will, be a lighter color, plus it'll be diluted. Your pigment will be diluted. And also, if your paper underneath is wet, it will spread. My paper underneath is dry right now, so I'll have to worry about that. So I'm just going to do a little painting here. You can follow along with me. Hopefully you can see everything okay here. You can zoom in, of course, at any point in time when you're trying to watch a video. I'm adding some more brown. I'm an as-I-go kind of painter. I do so much preparation, and then I just put the brush to the paper, and off I go, because I get a lot of new thoughts when I paint that wasn't necessarily my first thought. So here, this is just some addition to what I have. I'm going to take some reds, I'm going to mix them together, some alizarin crimson, and these are just little fluffy little, don't really know what they're called, but they're just these fluffy little cute little things that I'm going to take some purple, add it to that color a little bit, because I love mixing colors. That's probably the biggest compliment I get. Well, I get a lot of compliments, but I mean, a lot of compliments I get have to do with this mixing of colors that I end up using. And a lot of my mixing of colors, like I say to people, it's not like I spend hours. I do have charts that I have made that, you know, are color mixes, but I literally, it has a lot to do with just what I mix on the palette, what I choose to mix together with what I have on the palette. It really has a lot to do with that. Now I'm just in here making these, and I don't have it green enough, so excuse me. So I want to, and another thing, when you paint, it's your painting. There's no set rule. You don't have to have this a certain color, that a certain color. You can make these things be just exactly whatever you want them to be, and that's what I love. I really love that. I am using some red into this green, because everything that you paint looks so much better if you incorporate the colors that you have in your painting everywhere. You can see I've got reds and pinks in my leaves. It just really, it harmonizes the painting and makes it a lot better. I'm going to dab into the orange here, which I believe is a cadmium orange. There's so many colors too of things that you can. This is a wet brush. I've got a little bit of water on my brush onto a dry piece of paper. So I'm going in here and I do a little outline. No, you don't have to, but I do, usually. And I have some red mixed in with that orange, because it's darker down here at the base and around, you know, the edges, the outline. And try to remember, it takes a while to try to remember this, but try to leave a white spot. You can go back in with white. I use Chinese white and a few other whites, but I'm trying to make myself remember that the best thing is to leave your white spot. So here I come over here to this particular little flower. Again, I don't have any particular name for these things. They're just whatever I feel like putting down. Whatever comes to mind, whatever little flower or leaf or, you know, comes to mind. You practice all this stuff. You practice how to make leaves, different leaves. I have videos on how to make leaves, different kinds of leaves, flowers. You know, your learning never ends in this kind of thing. Now I'm going to come down here a little bit to one where I've already put a green leaf, and I'm adding right on top of that dry, I'm adding some yellow because I see that there. I see that it can use some more, a little light in some areas here. I'm just dabbing it around. Now see, I like that better. As I paint and it dries, it's going to get darker, lighter, I'm sorry, because with watercolor, it dries lighter. It took me a while too to get used to that, painting with acrylic for so long, but you know, you just learn new things, that's all. So here I'm adding my leaf parts to the, see, I mean, isn't that just gorgeous? I truly fell in love with water painting once I really got into it and really chose to understand it, you know, which means I really did a lot of learning and everything to you know, get to this point. This is some, I think I've got some yellow ochre here with some what is that, burnt sienna, I think. I've got a bunch of different colors on my palette here, and my advice too is somebody paints with this color, somebody paints that particular thing with that color. It means nothing. It just means that's what they chose to paint with. You can change the whole thing and put whatever your little heart desires to paint with. I'm grabbing some purple here and this orange and some red. Now see, I just did 3 different colors. I came out with this burgundy kind of color, and this is what I love. And I don't even always plan it. Sometimes I plan it, but rarely, I just, most of the time, I just go for it. It's I wanted painting to be something that was peaceful, joyful, fun. I didn't want to go by a set of rules. I didn't want to think I had to do something this way or something that way. You just learn the basics and then you go for it. Now I added some yellow into this. I'm going to go back into my yellow. This is watercolor yellow. And I'm going to add a little yellow. Whoop, a little too much on my brush, but it's okay, we'll work it around. And just add the yellow color here and there. Now, if I was doing this and the background was all wet, all of this would just bleed into itself, which in itself is beauty in its own. But I don't. The first part was, like I said, the mixing of colors, blending of colors to get the beautiful background, and then let it dry overnight for part 2. So I'm going to go to the green a little bit here because within this, now some people use really small brushes, and some people actually do something like this with really big brushes, you know. I mean, again, it's all your preference, what you want to do. That's art. Art wouldn't be art if we had to, you know, do everything like everybody does it, and it would be very boring. So it's good and fun to, I'm just going to make that one a green, make that green right there. So right now, with it not being wet, I have to, you know, apply what I want in there. So I'm grabbing a bit more darker green, and I'm going to dot some areas where these are rather loose, like flowers, but I want them to, this is gamboge, so I'm going to add a couple of little dots of that in there. I want it mostly dark, so I don't, actually, you know what, I don't. I'm going to grab some yellow. Like I said, I can change anything up really quickly. So that kind of, I like that better. Okay. So I just had a few of these little, oh, I see another spot. Always kind of dab when you, my paints, we've sprayed our paints, so they're a little bit wet. So barely, but I mean, they're wet oh, I can't seem to think of the word I'm trying to say. Well, they dry in your palette, so you have to wet them. For some reason, the word I want seems to not be coming to mind, but I think you get the gist of it. So here I have some burnt sienna, some browns, a little bit of red, and I'm just making, I have some things that are going to show up more and some things that are going to be light, because you want some depth in your paintings too. So if I don't want it to be flat, I want it to be pretty and have depth in the whole thing. So I'm going to have some really light things, and I'm going to just kind of go like this in the background. Take some yellow, too much water in the, and I'm just going to dab these in there so they look like they're there, but they're in the background, very light colored. That will give it depth. So I'm going to take a little green here with some water on it, and I'm going to just make some very light leaves for indication. Oh, there goes one brush on the floor. Indication of other leaves in the background to give it depth. We don't want it to be real bright and vivid, because that wouldn't look like in the background, right? So we just kind of take a lot of water. A lot of water on it is the key for that. And anywhere you feel like you just want to, this is a loose and defined type of painting. I often like to incorporate the loose and the dark. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do the loose and the defined in the same painting. I like that. Again, that's my preference. So I am doing that there, and I've made those extra little things, little doodads, and I don't mind. I want it to kind of fade back, because I have these darker ones here that are pronounced, that tell you that they're up closer. Now see how that was wet? So that kind of bled into there. I love the bleeding of watercolors. So for me, if it bleeds into something that I'm doing, I mean, that's like the beauty of watercolor, so I don't mind. Now, these are not as yellow as I want. I could keep using the watercolor yellow, but I'm not going to. I'm going to come over here with some acrylic, and I'm going to dab in, and as you can see already, they're a bit lighter. I'm going to let them dry, and then I'll probably add some more. Now what we're going to do, for the sake of not having a long video, as I said before, there's so much, you know, that we can do, but for this I want to come over here to these white flowers. And as I mentioned before, I want them to stay white, but they can't be just plain pure white. So I'm going to go into some of my blue. I could choose any color I want, but I'm going into the blue, very watery. Well, first of all, I want to kind of go around the edges a little bit, and everything's dry in the background, so I don't have to worry about it. And as I said before, I probably wouldn't care if it did. I'm just making some shadowy areas. We've already established the outside of the I'm going to add another blue in there. A little too much water, so take the water off. I'm spreading that around, you see? And then I'm going in and I'm softening where I'm spreading it, because this is just, you know, sort of shadows. I'm going to put a little more. I think this is ultramarine along with this other blue, a little more water. And I'm going to go around, I'm going to outline. But on one side, which is the left side, because I want to indicate my lighting's coming from the right, although in this particular painting, I have it almost like it's coming down from the top, kind of, which is, you know, again, your preference. So we're going to just come over to this one and put, some of them will have a little more pronounced color, some will be lighter. It's all the interest, what makes it all interesting. You want to leave as much white as you can. Go back in, dab some of that out for softening the edges. I'm actually going to come around this whole thing like this with a little darker blue. And I'm just going to outline that center. I want that to kind of stand out a little bit. So I hope I'm not talking too soft. I tend to do that when I'm really focused. But you can turn up your, you know, your volume and so forth. But you see, I have the color in the petals, but I'm leaving white space so that you can see that it's highlighted. Boy, did it ever take me quite a while to do that. So don't get upset with yourself if you're, you know, just learning and you never remember to do your white spaces. Oh man, I got frustrated quite a few times. And you have to be patient with yourself, you know. You have to say, well, I'm just learning, so, you know, I'm not going to get it right all the time. Nobody gets it right all the time, even when they're a seasoned artist. So don't even go there with yourself. Like I always say, give yourself a break and just have fun. It's so much fun when you allow it to be fun, really. It's, oh my, it's just like the most fun painting experience I think I've ever done. Even though I did acrylic for all that time. I still love acrylics, and I do paint with acrylics sometimes, but since I've learned watercolor, I can't seem to get away from it. So I have some commissions that I've done in both watercolor and acrylic along the years. So, you know, it's all what you want to make it, basically, and you don't want to make it so that it's, now so that it's not fun. I am going around the center of this, now I just jumped to this one, sorry. This one's still a little wet, and I want this to bleed, so I'm going to add a little water because the center should be a little wet, you know, should be a little darker, sorry. So what I'm doing is there, let that kind of dry a little, come back over here. These on the left side will be a little on the darker, you have a little more shadow happening. But as I said, I don't have any I didn't distinctly plan that it has to be on the left or the right. Just make it be what you want it to be. So I like the way this is coming out so far. I'm moving the paint around with water and softening what they call the edges, you see? So it doesn't look like I have just a line there. It's all blending together. So that looks good. I like that. Now, a lot of times I will take another color, such as pink, like I'm going to do here, because pink is in a lot of my painting, right? And I'm going to add pink and various things all around. I just think that that made it even prettier. And I'm going to stick with the blue, I guess, for the flowers. So we'll come over to here, kind of outline the side of that. Now you can see I'm making this a little bit different blue, a darker sort of blue. I think I have like 3 blues in my palette here. I'm pretty sure the darker one is ultramarine, and then I have Prussian blue, and then I have phthalo blue, I believe is the other one. So, but I mix it. I don't know when that all happened with me, but it did. And I love to just go in and grab one color, then grab another color, whatever kind of comes to my mind while I'm doing it, such as right now. You might not like that. You may, just want to stick with one color and go with that. That's totally your preference. It's your painting. I can't say that enough. Because if you don't think like that, you get all hung up in what I'm supposed to do, what I'm not supposed to do, what's okay to do, what isn't okay to do, and that just doesn't apply. I mean, it just doesn't apply. Painting is free and fun, and you want to keep it that way. You'll learn faster as well. At least it worked that way for me. I mean, so sure, there are certain, guidelines, and I don't like to use the word rules, but guidelines and so forth that help and create different effects. So that's up to you to learn on your own and apply them where you want to apply them, right? So I'm adding these different blues that are together, and then I'm coming back in and I'm blending it all around, taking some out, putting some in. And now I want to go back to that center area. I'm going to add a little pink into that again, which will make it about a bit of a purple. And I want to dot that all in for the center. And it's bleeding a little bit, but not too much, because I don't want it to bleed too much. Go in and soften that one again. Just drag it around wherever you want it, leaving that white, which turned out really great. Now this one here, oh, and there's an area I see that I kind of missed in between for the background. So there, and I think what I'm going to do with this little flower, well, I guess I'll do it one of the reds. So I've got a little bit of water on my brush, not a lot. And I want this one to kind of stand out. So I'm going to paint it with some pretty intense color instead of lots of white and diluted. I want it to be, I don't want it opaque. I want it to be strong. I want this flower to, these petals with this flower to stand out a little bit more. Why? No particular reason. That's what I want to do. Leaving the whites again, as I mentioned. Now I can come in here with, what I do is I take the paint off my brush in the water, so there's no more paint, dab it a little bit on my towel, come in here and pull out some color. I've still got my dark around, but I'd like to have some light happening within it as well. And then I'm going to go into this brown and some green. It's actually sepia. The one I'm going into, I'm sorry, is sepia, which is like a dark brown with other colors in it. And I'm going to put that in the center of that one. Around the center of that one, I'm going to add some purple right into it's still a little wet, so I'm just going to dab it, and I don't mind that it bleeds. That's exactly what I'm kind of hoping it does. There we go. When the sepia dries here, I'm going to come into my gamboge, which is not ready to do that yet. It'll just bleed all into one big color. So we'll wait. And actually, I think I'm going to add this over here. Gamboge is a really pretty color. And sort of add that in. That looks good there. And I might just even put a little bit of it up here into these flowers that I have up there. So you see I've managed to get the, I'm gonna put some more water on my brush and move this around a little bit so more of a line there, the hard line that I didn't want to have. And you can have it if you like that look, then that's what you keep. But that's, there we go. And see some of the pinks here blended, and some of it bled too much, so I'm going to go in with some more blue and dab it in there so that I can still see the blue. Do the same thing here. I think maybe that, yeah, that's ready to add some little dots of gamboge there, just enough to say that I did, and with a sepia, which is a dark color. So, I mean, isn't that pretty? I mean, you can see it a little better, the color, if I tip it this way. So we've already gone an awfully long time, a little longer than what I had wanted to do, but that's okay. I mainly got what I wanted to accomplish today. So I believe I'm probably going to call this one finished for, the only other thing I'm going to do, whoops, really quickly, is come into the center with some of that gamboge. Won't take long. Dot that in there. And I have very little water on my brush, and take some of the sepia with the green, pearling green, and add it in there. So we have, you know, a center for the flowers. And it's entirely, I'm going to grab some of the yellow, add that in there as well. There we go. And I'm calling this one finished, so I hope you liked it. I hope you got some helpful tips. Here's the looking at it a little bit better, I think, this way, to see the coloring with the lighting in here. So please check out my other tutorials, my other videos. I think you'll enjoy them. And come on back for another one. Bye for now.